Well, here we are today. We have double duty Ken Cuperus, the writer and the producer of our currently favorite Hallmark series, Mistletoe Murders. This podcast was created by fans for fans and is not affiliated with or sponsored by Hallmark or the Hallmark channel. How are you doing, Ken?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Eric.
Well, it's great to have you here. Now, you are, well, I guess you're a writer and producer, so you're really not a face that many people on Hallmark knows because no one knows, for the most part, who the writers and producers and everything
Yeah,
are. But you're,
I've got a face for radio, so as they say.
well, it's a good thing you started with the Audible then. But why, why don't you just take a little moment and tell a little bit about everybody, like a little bit of your background and how you ended up getting essentially in the entertainment biz and all of that.
Sure, yeah. I started in comedy actually as a sketch comedian and stand-up comedian.
Wait, performing?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I used to do stand-up comedy and then sketch comedy for years and years. It's what brought me to Toronto from my hometown of Winnipeg. Same as Peter Mooney. I'm sure he told you. And so when I moved to Toronto, I was doing sketch comedy, and I kind of got linked into a animation studio called Nelvana, who was doing a half hour primetime comedy series. And with the help of my partner, now wife, Michelle Melanson, we managed to get them to give me a shot at that. And I never really looked back. I worked in animation for probably 5 years, then expanded beyond that into other television and found my way to sitcoms, sci-fi, and now for the past couple of years, it's been all mysteries.
Is that mystery the genre that you like best, or is it kind of where you just evolve to?
It's kind of what I evolved to. I really dig any of those genres. Funny enough, comedy, straight comedy, is the one genre that I never really ended up doing, other than sitcom. For YTV, I did a multi-camera sitcom, but mostly I just inject the comedy into every other genre. So that's kind of where I get to have a leg up a little bit. Is just trying to be funny in some of these, mysteries and stuff is really good.
Well, you do have, there's a couple of those little lines, the subtle but powerful lines that you just get in there. So you can see your comedy background coming there.
Oh, good.
But but you are a writer who then has become a producer. I assume that's the natural progression. Now, did you become the producer just because as a writer you're just wanting to protect your writing and those meddling producers come in and mess it all up and you figured
Yes,
if
those
you're the
darn
producer?
producers like my wife who
Right.
win everything. No, I'm just kidding. No, I generally when you create something, you're kind of in line to be a producer on it, showrunner as well as if you have that skill set. Um, yeah, it's basically the title is there for you as a creator showrunner.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your
Um,
wife's probably the more true producer when we think producer kind of thing,
yeah,
and you're
she's
the
the absolutely. I'm the creative. She's the producer, although she's super creative too. But as far as the breakdown goes, she does the tough paperwork, and I get to do the fun paperwork.
right, right. Yeah, we've had a couple producers on, and it's amazing as we've learned what it is. There's a lot of non-sexy entertainment things that producers really do have to do. So,
Yes, absolutely. It's a tough job. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it as the primary focus of my job. That's for sure.
so one of the things we like to do is do a couple icebreakers just to have fun, loosen up, and get in the
Yeah,
flow.
let's do
Like
it.
those weren't really the questions that we're going to roll in. We're going to go into the really hard hitting ones now. And
Okay.
the Mistletoe Murders started out as a podcast, so I'll ask you, what's your favorite podcast to listen to?
I listen every week to a podcast called Comedy Bang Bang. That's probably my favorite. I listen to mostly comedy podcasts and movie podcasts. I don't listen to a ton of narrative podcasts, audiobooks, because I prefer the visual medium. I prefer watching it on TV and having it in that extra dimension. But I listen to probably 10 podcasts a week as far as various interesting podcasts. Should I say your podcast as well?
Yeah, I was
Maybe.
about to say it was a wonderful opportunity to say Hallmark Mysteries and More is the best podcast ever, but that's okay. We'll let you slide. We'll let you slide on this one. I do find a little ironic that you wrote a podcast and yet you don't like to listen to those type of podcasts.
Yeah, it's
But
not if it's the only way to get to it, like I'll definitely listen. Like I listen to a couple of podcasts, narrative podcasts for sure, but if it's, you know, if there's a way to watch it in the television or medium, I'll jump onto that usually. But Audible has some amazing podcasts. I've listened to quite a few.
I've gotten into a lot of the ironically the rom-com books, and some of them are pretty darn good. And some of them are very interesting because I guess you get to understand that like Harlequin romance type
Yeah.
genre, which I'm like, yeah, not what I'm signing up for. Where all of a sudden, like, the bursting chest of muscles and all those crazy adjectives for male bodies. But all right, let's move on. What is the greatest movie or TV detective of all time?
Well, it's obviously Jessica Fletcher from She Wrote. I mean, that's not even close. Maybe Magnum PI is a close second, but
Okay, I have to interject because Andrea, my co-host, her favorite one is Murder She Wrote. My favorite is Magnum. So you just hit a home run
oh,
with
there
both
you
of us
go.
there.
That's
So,
awesome. I actually was considering doing a podcast called Fletcher versus Magnum that kind of goes through both series, which aired roughly the same time and had roughly the same amount of episodes, and kind of doing a episode by episode comparison. But I just don't have time for that. But it would
well,
have
you
been
know
would
what?
have
You
been funny.
maybe just spurred and well, Andrea Net doesn't barely has time to do our podcast, but
Yeah.
she would probably be like, "Yeah, let's trash this Hallmark thing." If I can talk Jessica Fletcher, she always interjects Jessica into one of them. Like when we review a movie, there's always a Murder She Wrote episode that parallels the story.
Right. Of
So,
course, they did it all.
all right, what is your go-to holiday drink or treat?
Good question. I don't eat a lot of sweet stuff. I actually I'm kind of a weirdo that I kind of like Christmas cake, with marzipan. It's
Okay.
because it's not too sweet and it's kind of muffiny. I don't know. It's kind of my go-to. Bread pudding as well is one of my favorite
Oh, bread
Christmas
pudding,
sweets.
fantastic.
Yep.
Okay,
Drink. I can't think of anything too festive, but I do enjoy an eggnog coffee.
okay, that
Yeah.
works. That works. Now, last one. What is the best Christmas movie, or I guess I'll say holiday movie of all time?
All time. Boy, that's a tough one. I'm a big fan of White Christmas. I'm gonna cheat and give you two because
Okay.
we our family watches A Muppet Christmas Carol every year, and that's like probably my favorite family Christmas movie. But the one that I watch after everyone goes to bed is always White Christmas. I just really love that movie.
Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? I guess
I,
I told you I wasn't going to be controversial, but here we go.
you know what? Die Hard is in my top five movies of all time, but I have a little issue with calling it a Christmas movie. I think it's definitely Christmas adjacent. I would not hold anyone accountable for watching it on Christmas. I think it's absolutely a fair thing to say it's a Christmas movie. I think the reason I don't like to call it a Christmas movie is because I love it so much that I want to watch it all year round. So I don't want to feel like I'm putting it in that box. But yeah, I can see why people would consider it a Christmas movie, but it's not, it's adjacent for me.
I'm there with you. I get people who are very much into that whole argument, and I say exactly what you said. it's a great movie, but I don't view it as a Christmas movie.
Yeah. And then Die Hard 2 is actually set on New Year's Eve, I think, right? So that kind of eliminates it from being a Christmas movie as well.
Well,
Holiday.
I was about to say most don't know that your wife is a producer who you work with, but we just talked about it, so now everybody knows that. But what's it like for you having your work wife be your actual wife?
We didn't we started our company together fairly recently, only a couple of years ago. So the first 20 years of my career, we were doing our own thing. She was very much a children's producer, and I was very much by that time working in prime time and animation still. We did cross over. We both worked at Nelvana for a period of time here, which is an animation studio here in Toronto. But yeah, our we were on different trajectories for quite a while. And then about 5 years ago, we both thought, wouldn't it be nice just to have our own thing and work on our own projects and not be accountable to anybody else? And so we did, and we've had nothing but success since. And we work really well together. We she's a producer and I'm a writer, so we do butt heads pretty constantly at work, but we don't take that home with us, and we get things done. It's pretty great.
So you're not over dinner, sort of something, and she's like, we have to cut that scene. It's just too many locations. You're like, absolutely not. You throw the
Sometimes we
Christmas
do,
cake out.
and our daughter will jump in and go, "Can you please stop talking about work?" And so then that's like, okay, we'll save that for tomorrow.
I was going to say one of our listeners tuned me into the Audible, the
Mhm.
which is the Mistletoe Murders is based off of, and so we chatted about what a great Hallmark series this would be. How did it go from being Audible to becoming an actual Hallmark series? Because Hallmark didn't really do mystery. Well, they've never done mystery series before, and
Yeah.
now we have this. So, how did this happen? They come to you, you go to them.
Well, it's kind of funny. I created Mistletoe Murders as a potential Wheel of Movies or TV series first. And before I'd even had a chance to pitch it that way, Michelle ended up, that's my partner, Michelle, ended up pitching Audible some ideas for children's podcasts, and they were not doing children's at the time, and they said, but we're looking for mysteries. So Michelle said, well, my husband's a mystery writer and he's got this great idea, and she pitched my idea, and they were like, they were super excited about it right out the gate. So it kind of just fell into Audible, and I had to kind of wrap my head around that because I wasn't really prepared for
And you don't
not.
like them?
I love them. I love them, but I'd never written an audio only project before. So, I'm working visual medium.
Right.
So I really had to like kind of wrap my head around that. And it was really interesting because it had been a lot of years since I'd had to learn a new skill. Um, and so it was really fun. I figured it out, I think. And, it helped having the narration from the lead character. Really, that's where that came from, was the absolute necessity of being able to describe the scenes without seeing it. So I kind of made it a little more noir so that we could have that inner voice, walk us through, the landscape and the soundscape for Audible. So then after that, I really wanted to find a way to get it back to a visual medium as soon as possible, and so we took it to Lionsgate Canada, and Jocelyn Hamilton there really kind of loved it and really became a champion for it, and she took it to Hallmark, and like within maybe a month, we had Hallmark excited about it. And, we were already talking about a new pilot and getting it going. And this is all in 2024. Like it happened
Wait,
so fast.
this, and then you filmed it in the summer, in like July or
Yeah.
something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
It happened very quickly. It may have been the very tail end of 2023, but everything to do with the show was done within this calendar year. and on a very tight schedule because obviously we had to get it on the air by by October 31st. So it was you know it was like just a downhill race the whole time. It was great.
That is crazy because we talked to another writer who optioned her book to Hallmark for a mystery, and she didn't hear from them for 3 years and was like, okay, that's gone, that's over with. And all of a sudden they called and said, okay, we're ready to go. Like, and then here you are, having breakfast, and then at lunchtime they're like, let's
Yeah.
go. So
I mean, it's only because it was a seasonal uh, series, and they didn't want to wait another year. Like, if we didn't get our act together and get going, they would have had to wait until Christmas 2025 to air, and they really wanted to get on the air as quickly as possible. So,
at that
um,
time,
I credit them. Our producing team at Hallmark is so amazing. I don't know if you know them. It's I hope I don't get their names wrong. Kelly Garrett, Jillian Profeta, and Jose Magana, and they like are amazing, like creative partners. Shocking. I've never worked with such a great creative team before on the
that's,
producers.
that's awesome. Now, when you it first came around, because this, like you say, beginning of the year, and as we know, it's on Hallmark Plus, which launched in September. Did you know that it was going to be part of the streaming system that was coming up, or at the time it was just, hey, we want to get this done, and then it became part of Hallmark Plus when that all came to?
You know, I'm not sure when Hallmark Plus became part of the conversation. I can't remember if it was right out of the gate or if it was just going. And I'm not sure even they knew because Hallmark Plus didn't get announced until later. So I'm not completely sure of the genesis there. But I think by the time we were shooting, we knew that we were going to be on the new streaming service, um, and that would be obviously we did because we got to, do a couple of things that traditional Hallmark projects, the rom coms and the Christmas movies don't get to do, which is be a little bit edgier, a little bit darker.
Kill people. Not a lot of dead people in the Hallmark
Yeah.
holiday movies typically. Well, let's go back to the podcast for a second there. The cast of the Audible is just absolutely fantastic. You got Colby Smulders as Emily, Raymond Ableck as Sam, and Anna Cathcart, excuse me, as Violet. Were like any of them considered to come on over as well? I mean, Colby is
I,
an
you know, I,
Avenger.
I'm sure like it's all muddled in my head, but I'm absolutely sure an offer probably went out to them. It's just it happened so quickly. I know Ray for sure. Ray Black was like on Ginny and Georgia, not available. Kobe Smulders had a film, not available. Anna Cathcart actually was in Asia doing a TV series, not available. Those three were not available to us. And I talked to them all, and they would have loved to do it, but it just happened too fast.
I guess you're right because yeah, when you think about it, and we've talked to enough actors when they plan, and the scheduling is usually the
Yeah,
biggest issue than everything else of lining, especially when you have multiple actors. It's Colby has always been one who I was like, oh, she is just built to be on Hallmark. I mean, she's absolutely adorable and
yeah.
lovely. So
She's so good. On the Audible project, the way she changes between like the two sides of Emily is just astonishing. Like it's not easy to read off all that narration and then switch gears and be the bubbly version of Emily that the rest of the world sees, right? And she has that soothing voice when she does the narration. Like it's just I couldn't have asked for a better Audible Emily for sure.
I agree. Like obviously, I remember her from Why Am I Going Brain Dead on
Oh, How I Met Your Mother.
How I Met Your Mother, and I didn't realize just how good her voice was until you obviously hear it in an
Yeah,
audio only. But
yeah,
her voice is so good, and like you're saying, the way to flip between characters and really just through her inflection and everything tell that story, which we talked about earlier. We both like to see things, right? And she's
yeah.
able to just do it with just voice. So
Yeah, and it was the Audible project was also very quick. I think we wrote all 6 scripts in 6 weeks and had to cast and get it on the air. It was whenever you're doing a Christmas project, it's a race to Christmas, right? And so, she came when Kobe arrived, like she just like knew her character. Like she's like, "How's this?" And she did it, and I was like, "That's, I mean, that's perfect." Like, I no notes. It was, it was pretty astonishing, and that's not to take anything away from Sarah Drew, who is absolutely brilliant on on the
Totally agree.
she is like what an exciting find for us, and just the fact that she was so willing to jump in and play in our sandbox, and man, she just kills it, and she's in every scene, and she's just like never loses energy, never loses her optimistic disposition, and what a joy.
Yeah, we get to talk to her next week, and I am very, very excited.
Yeah,
One,
I mean, she is who she projects. Like she's just so lovely at all times. I've never really seen Sarah to be anything other than what you see on the screen, really.
that's awesome. One of the people who did make it over is one of my favorite characters, Brooke. Kylie Evans was
Riley,
the
yeah.
audible there, and then you also have her being over there.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's also Debbie, I forget her name, Raven, uh,
Raven Dada.
daughter. Yeah, she different character, but she carries over.
So both Kylie is a very close friend. I've been working with Kylie for years and years. She's actually married to one of my best friends. So she's a part of my life outside the show, and so it's really fun to have her be in the show as well. I did a sitcom called The Stanley Dynamic, which was um, a live action sitcom that had a cartoon character in it. And this is about 10 years ago, and she was in that too, and she was just fantastic. And I love Kylie so much. She's great.
And we're talking about voices. She just is perfect as Brooke,
Yeah,
right? Like
absolutely.
she's the kind who you want to hate. She has that like little sort of, I don't know if arrogance is the right way, but to put it just in the way she talks, but at the same time, you like her, right? So
She's
she's
so
lovely.
sweet in real life too, right? Like she has to play this Karen, and I always feel bad about that, but like because she's just so nice and sweet, and when you meet her in real life, and she's always like, "Oh, I got to play this character who's kind of annoying," and I'm like,
Well,
"Yeah, but you do it so well. You're so good at it."
it's not a spoiler because it's out now, but she does soften up in season 3 of the podcast.
She
So
does. I mean, I mean, less softening up and more kind of just Emily letting her in a little more. Like I think yes, mainly because of the story that she's in for the first story, it kind of softens her up a little bit itself. And but if we come back with a season 4, which we're very hopeful to do, I think we'll see a little bit of the old Brooke kind of emerge.
good. Love it.
But you mentioned Raven as well. Raven is one of my favorite actors, and I cast her in everything that I can. She's been in every single show that I've been in charge of for sure.
You're talking about how you take some of that humor and can inject it.
Yeah.
She was awesome. Like we do our little character or scene standout, and she was mine for her doing the
Yeah,
little
yeah.
honey spray or butt bee spray right before she gets crushed by a sled. And
Yeah.
it just she was hilarious in that.
She's
So
so funny, and she brought a lot of that wasn't on the page. Like she brought that. She was like, we were. I think the script said she's an average singer, and she just like took that and like ran with it, and it was so funny. She had us all in stitches. She's so great. I love her so much.
okay, I'm gonna get really hard on you here for a second.
Oh, okay, here we
You're a
go.
writer of the whole series.
Mhm.
Who is your favorite character? I know everyone's
Uh,
like, "Oh, I don't have him, whatever," but you have one, and so we
I
need
do
you to
have
tell us.
one, and he's like he's it's famous Ray probably because
Love him.
he is he kind of lives outside the series a little bit. Like he's the one character that is kind of a misfit for everything else we're doing. Like he's the one character who is very anti Hallmark. He's like, he's sort of a bad guy. He's kind of the opposite of Emily in that well, no, he's actually kind of her equivalent. He's a guy who has a secret life and projects as a normal guy and has like a different side to him. And I just love writing for him because because he's not in it that much. He's kind of the guy she goes to see. That I can just be as funny as I want with him. I can just be silly and like. And I love David Hewlett is another guy I worked with on when I was on Stargate several years ago, and he's just the funniest guy in real life. And it's he brings that comedy, a lot of that comedy again, like the facial expressions and stuff. That's all him. He's so great.
He
So
is
yeah, I
definitely
do.
he's definitely one of our favorite. He's also made the list of our favorite scenes characters.
Oh, great.
And
Hey, let me go back to Raven for a minute. Did you know that Raven, because she was so funny in this, but she's also in the podcast and she plays a
right,
very serious character, right? She plays the role of Famous Ray's wife, who has kind of a tragic story, and she's like just so good in it. Like she's the four category stud, as I say. She's like she can do drama, she can do comedy, she can sing, she can do everything. It's like amazing, so good.
and we don't want to talk about that part of that episode for
Well,
for reasons we just discussed. But we'll let
yes.
people listen to it and find out why. So Famous Ray delivers, he doesn't deliver, but with Emily, the best line of the entire series: "Game recognized game." I've
Yes.
used it now in my personal life. That is when you think iconic lines. Hasta la vista, baby, right? Game recognized game. Got to tell me about, like, was this one that just came to you? Was this scratching it, trying to get it just right? Best line.
I mean, I didn't create that line. I've definitely heard it. Like I don't know where, but it was so apt that like because I needed her to be able to say something that kind of disarmed him and threw him off, wanting to know the answer. So it just came to me. I for the life of me, I don't know where I heard it, but yeah, it was like a nice succinct little thing that she could say that, Ray's just like, well, it's a great answer, so I guess I guess I got my answer, but like it doesn't actually tell me anything. Like I actually love Ray's response even more than the line in just that look he gives and says, I love that. I love that. It doesn't tell me anything, but I love it.
But it also tells us a lot about Emily, like you're saying, her two sides, right? Where she's she's just like you say, she is Famous Ray on the other side,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's just a very telling line. And Sarah, the way she delivers it, like favorite line of the entire series. And there's been a
Oh, great.
lot of good lines, a lot of good
Well,
lines.
there's still two more episodes. We'll see if it hangs in there.
Well, and this may be a question that's maybe more suited for your wife, but you are a producer, so we're going to
Mhm.
hold you to it.
Okay.
But part of your job was taking this audio, Fletcher Groves, and turning it into an actual visual one. Tell me
Yeah.
how you guys like went about, like, was there a whole bunch of places that you scouted, or was it like, oh, hey, this is where we're shooting, fine, let's go? Or was there like a big search to find the right place?
Yeah, well, we did. There's a lot of places in Ontario, within an hour of Toronto that are Fletcher's Grove, that are these small towns with a main street that look like kind of an old, every town USA. Um, they're really charming, and it's we have those, we have that, but it came to our attention that this little town existed in a cornfield in the middle of nowhere, that we could use and not have to worry about traffic and stopping people and having having to move cars and change everybody's license plate and get people to sign. Like going to a real street has a lot of complications. not insurmountable. We do it all the time, but to go to find a backlot, which is essentially what this was. They built it for a show called Reacher, and it was just like literally in the middle of a field, a green field. And it was 2 blocks and it had all the buildings we needed. All we had to do was change all the signage, put up Christmas decorations, make it feel Christmas, put down snow blankets. And when we found this town, we were really excited about it. We actually thought we were going to use it more than we did. We ended up also having a studio to do some of the interiors, but yeah, it was a great find. Great find.
Speaking of great finds and great visuals, Under the Mistletoe is it's just a store that I imagine like every Hallmark viewer would love to go shop at. Tell us a little bit about, well, first of all, the name, absolutely fantastic. But secondly, like how you went around like designing all of that, like the set creators for that were just definitely earned their
Yes.
pay. And are there, if we look closely, are we going to see a bunch of product placement? Is there like a lot of Hallmark ornaments and things like that throughout?
Um, yeah, you know what? Hallmark was great. Like if you see the wall of wrapping paper behind the counter in the store, that was all sent to us by Hallmark. They have their annual lines of wrapping paper, and so they sent us a lot of stuff like that. We don't really have a lot of their stuff is branded, right? So we can't really do branded stuff in the store, which makes it more challenging. That's why we have throw pillows and blankets and a wall of wreaths, because we can't have TV characters and movie characters appear on like decorations and stuff. It's just, um, I don't know how it is in the US, but the Canadian rules about all that is just too complicated to try to get sign off on all that stuff. So um, you have to kind of build your set sort of generic, but saying generic doesn't do justice to what our team did, because it is so beautiful, and like they filled it like it's the kind of store that I would want to shop in, as opposed to having a bunch of cheesy kind of like decorations and stuff. And it's like tchotchkes and everything. It feels like it's an upscale store, and that's what we wanted to have.
When you're obviously the writer, so when you're writing it, you have something in your head, and then you see it become the reality, and that is
Mhm.
such a integral part of this. Does that align with what you thought, or is it like, oh wow, this is like not what I thought, but this is still pretty damn cool?
No, I mean the store is actually a little bigger than I thought it would be for the show. Like it's deeper, which is great. It's great depth, but I wasn't quite imagining it to have quite the square footage, so I was a little worried about filling it, with stuff and making it feel warm still. I didn't want it to feel like a set, um, and I didn't have to worry about that at all. It feels like it just, especially there's night scenes. I'm trying to think if they've played yet. Yeah, so. The night scene when she brings in Lizzie to have a chat with her, and the tree is on, and the lights are off, but it's all lit by like the little kind of secondary lights. That is probably my favorite set as far as the ambience of that look. Like it's just I love doing scenes in there at night. It's just so beautiful.
Well, the square footage in Fletcher Groves is pretty reasonable, so that's why Emily could afford such
That's right. That's
a big
right.
location.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about what, and maybe this isn't as interesting of a question as I thought because you originally had written it for the screen, but I was wondering what was like the biggest challenge of transforming it from an Audible story to a TV series?
Well, I mean, it's much easier just to talk about stuff than to actually film it. So I'll tell you the biggest thing, the biggest differences between Audible and TV is what we're able to achieve Christmas wise when we shoot in the spring and summer. So in Audible, we can do stories like we did a story where they found a body underneath the ice while they were skating on a pond. And it culminated in a big set piece where the ice is thin and they crash through the ice as they have kind of a little battle with Emily and the bad guy. And there's just no way to achieve that. And there's no way to bring that to the screen when you're shooting in July. Like it's impossible. So the Audible is where I kind of tend now that both are kind of running. I like to do the stories that I know I can't film. Like the new season has a big Santa Claus parade. That would be way too expensive to try to do on the TV version. But I can make that as big as I want in the Audible. So it was just especially for the pilot, I wanted to come out of the gate with a familiar story, but I did change some aspects of it. So, I had to think about the barn and what that stables was going to look like and how to bring it from an audio only into the visual. So that meant, going to look at 20 barns and trying to find all the elements we needed because it's a story that takes place in different areas of the barn and there's a hayride. And obviously, when you're shooting a show, you want all that stuff to be in the same location so you can shoot it, easier. And so it took us a while to find that barn, but we eventually found it, and it was amazing, I think.
It is, that's interesting because I didn't think about it. But when we talked to Peter, he talked about how, yeah, filming Christmas in the middle of summer is brutally challenging because of just being hot.
Yes.
But I guess from you, storytelling is limited as well. To
Yeah, I mean, we can't build
create
this.
a fake frozen lake would be pretty darn difficult,
Yeah,
I
I
imagine.
can't. I can't write. Some kids building a snowman. Like that's just impossible. So it's like the most basic winter activity or shoveling. I would love to do a scene where someone is shoveling. But it's too hard. It's too like we just can't do that really. In a summer shot series. So we got to be more creative. Like that's the biggest challenge is like how do we make this feel Christmas but make it achievable to shoot in the summer months or in the spring months.
Well, while I did not think it was necessarily filmed last week, I did think it was still filmed in the fall. So I felt like they did a great job of
Yeah,
the actors and then everyone else making it seem chilly. And then after talking to Peter, we found out it was anything but.
we
So,
had a heat wave. We had a
right,
major heat wave, like to the point where the crew was like in bikinis practically, and poor Sarah and Peter are in parkas, but he had his like he has like an ice pack
right.
jacket that he wears, and we would bring in ice cream trucks and stuff to make sure everybody could keep cool in other ways, and we like had fans everywhere. People would go to their crew cars just to get a little burst of the air conditioning in between scenes, and it's challenging, but it looks great because Sarah is the master of pretending she's cold.
That's
She's
what Peter
like
said.
is
Yeah.
so good at it, and our lighting director, Justin Black, the master of putting a blue filter on things to make it just feel a little chillier than it would look with that sun beaming
Oh,
in.
okay.
Yeah.
Dropping a little of that technical knowledge
Right.
on us. We usually don't get that. That's awesome. Love it. We talked to Sierra, and by the way, Violet is my favorite character, and it,
Aw.
it stems from the Audible. I love her in the Audible. And so when it was coming time to create the movie, I was really nervous. It wasn't going to, my favorite character wasn't going to be right, and as a result was going to spoil the whole series for me. And Sierra is amazing. I
Yeah.
love her. She's every bit as good. Dare I say, maybe I even like her better. And maybe it's just because I do actually get to see her.
Yeah.
She aligns with exactly what I envisioned Violet looking
Yeah.
like and everything. So great casting. But when we
Thank
talk
you. She was a
Sierra,
find. She has done, I don't
right?
know that she's done anything else. She was
She
like
she
she
hadn't.
came out of, she did what no I've never seen an actor do before, which is come out of the gate on her first project fully formed as like, having the confidence to come to an audition and just nail it the way she did was unheard of. Like I've just never seen anything like it.
Well, she's
Uh,
told us that she came in casting or auditioning for Anna, and yet she got cast as essentially a lead. So how did that like what was it that you guys saw that was just like, whoa, this is not a, secondary character who's going to be in 2 episodes. We need to make her a central part of this because like you say, no resume.
Yeah. Well, we did want to cast a little bit. We wanted to cast 18 plus because kid time issues on a show that had such a tight schedule can be even another challenge that we were a little worried about. And so when you cast teenagers as teenagers, they look even younger often. So we wanted to, have someone who could be 18 plus and still kind of bring a child quality to the role. And my God, we saw so many people for this role, and she just popped to the top of the pile. Like her audition was absolutely incredible. Like, I was expecting to have a bigger fight about casting her, and everybody was on board. Everybody, Hallmark, Lionsgate, they're all like, "Yeah, that's definitely going to be Violet."
She is, like I say, she's just
She's a joy, and I
awesome.
probably, a lot of our scripts were done in advance of shooting, of casting, even. So I got to kind of go back and write her in a little more because she was a little bit thinner because we didn't know exactly who we were going to get. And sometimes the concern is that some of the younger characters can be a little bit less polished than the adult actors. Not it was such not a concern that I ended up giving her more to do because she was just so good.
Well, that's what we talked about, and like she still looks very youthful. So it's not like she looks like she's the 30-year-old playing the teenager. She still
Yeah.
looks like a teenager.
Oh,
She's
she does.
a
She's
little
like,
little older,
yeah.
but I think that is what allows Violet to be so good, like you said, because one of the things that, and this was my concern, the kids don't always bring it like you need to, and Violet is such a layered character that I do think you needed that person who's a little bit older to be able to deliver that role. So great casting.
She made it easy.
You mentioned this a little earlier. The first murder, the first 2 episodes, does follow the podcast somewhat similar. We do swap up the killer at the end,
Yeah.
but then you veer away. So twofold. We talked a little bit about the logistics of it, but why did you first of all decide to keep just the first one, but switch the ending, and then take that veer and give us all brand new ones for episodes? I'll say mysteries 2 and 3.
I mean, I just don't like to repeat myself. When I was doing stand up early in my career, I mean, the reason I kind of didn't make that a career is because I didn't like telling the same jokes twice on stage, and you just can't be a working comedian with a new set every night. But I just, I feel like even though, there's potential for two different audiences, I wanted the Audible audience to be able to go into the show without knowing everything. I'm like, I read all of Game of Thrones. I read all the books, and then I went to watch the series, and the series followed the books so closely in that first season, at least, that I was like, oh, I know everything that's going to happen. Like, and it was like it really, to me, kind of brought the experience down quite a bit. I don't want people to have that. I want people to be able to go into this, not know what's going to happen. Plus, if we're lucky enough to keep both of these things going, I would rather have six new mysteries than three mysteries that, are modeled on mysteries that have already been out there. So it's just me, and Hallmark has been very supportive of this. I even said early on, like maybe we'll do one of the stories from the podcast every year, just to kind of like have a little bit of cohesiveness. But now we've kind of, the show has just marched to its own drum, and the backstory has changed and a lot of things have changed that the two projects have really separated. So there's really no point in doing that. And I'm really loving like delivering new mysteries instead of stuff that, it's for me as well as a writer. I don't want to like rewrite something I've already done. Like that's not exciting, like it's way more fun to come up with something brand new.
Love it. Well, I will say you can, say you whack the smug grin off of me because I did listen to the podcast, and so Andrea had not, so she did not know what was coming, and I told her, well, I didn't tell her it was coming. I just basically told her I knew it was coming, and then you went ahead and switched it up on me at the end. So I was not expecting that, but I was actually excited for that exact reason you said was I knew even if you did switch it up, I knew generally what was going down, right?
Yeah.
But now you switch it up. So I'm just like everybody else, listen to podcasts, love it, and then get to love hearing watching the new episodes there, not knowing what's coming. So
Yeah, and the podcasts are a bit shorter too. They well, they've kind of grown in length a little bit, but in the first season they were only 30 minutes roughly. So I had to expand that story and add a few more twists and turns. That the biggest one of the differences for me is that I wanted to keep the podcast fairly simple. Um, because it's harder to keep track of characters when you're listening than it is when you're watching. So I tried to keep the suspect count down a little bit so that listeners would have a real opportunity to solve the mystery themselves, which is really important to me. I'm a play fair guy. I have to have it so that the audience can solve the mysteries. All the pieces are always there.
interesting.
If you stop the episode 10 minutes before the end, I guarantee that you'll have everything you need to solve that mystery yourself. Which is for me the best kind of mysteries.
So it does not, as a writer, you're not like, darn, I didn't trick them at the end. You want them to figure out.
I mean, I like it to have enough twists and turns and enough questions that like they'll go, I think it's this, but it might be this. I just don't ever want to do a mystery where a character comes out of the blue and like, it's like and the solve is nothing. You're like, oh, I couldn't have solved that. I didn't have that piece. That piece came out of nowhere.
There are definitely some of the mystery series that is the tell is when you have a character who has such a insignificant role, but they get introduced and you see them like two times. You're like, okay, they're it because they're this extra person who doesn't fit, and it sort of becomes identifiable.
Yeah.
So I hear you, and I will say I did not even try solving the first one because I thought I knew who it was. And it's funny because I was watching it thinking, oh, and I don't remember what his name was, but the guy who did it, I was like, oh, he seems
Rowan.
like he's a killer, but I know who it is. And then it was
Yeah.
like, oh. And then at the current one that we just got to see, I did figure out who it was, and it was like unraveling, but it was that doesn't bother me. I
Yeah.
really don't need to be shocked at the end. If it's a good story, it's a good unraveling.
Mhm.
I enjoy him just as much. So
Yeah, I mean, it's like I'm a big fan of Columbo as well. And like, the thing about Columbo is you always knew who it was right at the beginning of the show. And then the joy of that show is watching Columbo figure it out, even though you already knew it, right? So I don't mind if like, there's the audience is kind of in it with you and
right.
watching it kind of unfold. But even that second mystery has a sort of an additional twist to like, make it a little more complicated at the end. And, that's the kind of thing that I like to do is even after you know who the killer is, well, maybe there's one more little
Right.
gotcha.
I have a couple requests for you. And
Yep.
I am going to be completely, I'm putting in the universe the good, positive thoughts that there is season two coming. Okay. I'm not
Okay.
going to question if there is. There is. Number one, can we get Peter Mooney's wife, Sarah Powers, to play either a murderer or even better yet, come back as his ex-wife and be his ex-wife on there? Sarah Power, love her, want to get her on this one. She also
Yeah.
was with Kylie in The Good Witch, so there's all that little connection. So that's my request.
All right, we'll see what we can do. I know that Sarah is often in LA still while Peter's up here. So and they've got the
I'll
kids.
fly to LA and I'll
So we'll
babysit.
see. We'll see what we can do. All right, request noted.
Right there. And then number two, one of the things I really loved about season three of the Audible was Violet got her mystery.
Hmm.
And as I told you, Violet's my favorite character. So that's my other request is that Violet gets her mystery to step up. So there
Okay.
you go.
Let's see
Those are
what we
my
can
two
do.
requests.
See what we can do. I mean, Violet ends up being a little bit involved, but not from the perspective of the person who solves the mystery in the choir story. But all right, I will take note for sure.
Perfect. Last question. What do you see? Because I just told you that season two is happening, and obviously you probably have the actual ideas noodled down or things like that. But just generally speaking, like give us a little bit of direction that you would see this going in the future.
More of the same. I mean, like I don't want to. I mean, you're definitely going to see. Should we be lucky enough to get a season two, we'll definitely dig into her past more. I think there's some bigger, more surprising things to come out of that. I mean, there's still more to come in the first season, but I know Hallmark is very impatient about the backstory. They're like, let's just do the backstory. And I'm always like, can we ease it out like I do on the podcast? They're like, no, backstory. So, and to their credit, I have to say, like, it's been really fun to kind of push that up, and now it's kind of going in a different direction than the podcast, and like
Right.
that's really exciting too. So, yeah, I don't think we'll be like drip, drip, drip with the backstory. I think it'll come crashing out a little more in future seasons. If we're so lucky. So, yeah, that's one thing that's really exciting is like seeing Emily's past kind of really be on a faster trajectory.
One of the that was sort of my last question, so we're now going to riff for a quick thing. But one of the things that I really like best in the mysteries is when the nosy body and the detective like is at first saying, "Hey, boundaries," but they respect the nosy body. Obviously, Emily has a very different past and skill set than most of the nosy bodies. She's not a baker, right, with intuition.
Yeah.
She obviously probably is more skilled than Sam at the end of the day, right? But really love how you Sam isn't basically a jerk
Yeah.
to Emily. But in the podcast, the thing I like a lot is how basically Sam very much recognizes Emily and her skill set, and then Emily obviously trusts him to reveal more about herself. Well, eventually she reveals all about herself.
Hmm.
I think we don't know what to come, but I think that's just a great dynamic is when Emily lets down her vulnerability, which is what we saw at the end of episode 4.
Yeah.
And that was, like I told you before, such a powerful, powerful scene, only to be outdone by the computer screen coming in with "I know you're there." So great, great ending. Can't wait for the next episodes to drop. I've said it many times, people are probably getting bored of me, but it is literally what wakes me up on Thursday mornings
Oh wow.
when it drops, just so I can get watching
Oh, I'm so happy to hear
these.
that.
So,
Yeah, no, I really, I'm not like I don't like to follow all the cliches so much. I really wanted Sam to be the kind of cop that, they're still going to butt heads, but I think that a smart cop is going to listen to anybody who tells them something. Like why wouldn't they? Why would they shut somebody down if that person is, telling them something that could be helpful? So. Um, Sam is the kind of cop that I would be if I was a cop, and maybe that's a bad thing because it's probably against all regulations. But
right,
yeah, I think that, and there's also it's a little different from the podcast, but it's because in the podcast they already have a bit of a relationship,
right.
whereas opposed to we see their first meeting in this, and so part of that first story, you know. had sort of the trappings of them being a little bit closer already. So it did kind of get fast tracked a little bit, but I think it's still appropriate. I think it still works. Sam, when he needs to, like when he sat her down in the Sue's diner and said, like, you got to stop, you got to stop getting in my way on this. He will tell her when she goes too far.
By the way, Sue is the same Sue podcast and
Yes,
one,
Chi
right?
Yoon. Yes, she's fabulous. I'm trying to think of who else is. A lot of people play different characters because if for whatever reason, if we can't cast them in the role that they were originally cast in, I still want to use them. I still want to. I'm kind of a loyal guy in that way. That if I love what they bring to the table, I want to bring them back in some capacity.
We had Emily Tennant as Anna in the podcast. I love her.
I'm a
She
big
now
fan of
the funny thing
Emily.
is I don't think she looks like the one who you have in I don't know her name, but who you have in the TV one
Yeah,
looks like Anna to me in right? Whereas Emily Tennant looks too sweet and too nice. She just
yeah.
doesn't there. But if you can get her back on, that okay.
Well, I
And now I
worked
have
I
three
worked with
requests for
Emily
you.
Tennant for years. I worked on a show called Mr. Young, which was a multi-camera sitcom, and she played one of the kids in the family. So I worked with her 15, 20 years ago now, for several years, and I got to watch her kind of grow into this amazing actor. And yeah, I would use her in a heartbeat. She's very like busy.
Okay.
I was
Well,
I was
those
thrilled.
darn
I made
schedules.
her. I called in a personal favor on the podcast and said, "You have to do this. It's only going to take you an hour." So I was thrilled that
Really?
she.
She's able to like lay out all those lines and everything, and it takes
You'd be
roughly an hour?
you'd be surprised how quickly, like, you're only. I mean, Anna was only in two scripts, and she probably only had maybe 40 lines. Yeah, it
Really?
just take long.
Interesting, because see, like I'm just going through memory now, because obviously I listened to it a year ago. It just seemed like a bigger presence, but okay, yeah.
Well, you think about like even our Emily's, Sarah Drew, it takes 8 to 10 weeks to shoot, but Kobe is done in 4 days. It's like it's a big difference.
Well,
When you can just come in and put on some headphones and read off a script, it's like it goes a little faster than when you're lighting and all and then all that waiting for airplanes to go by and all that fun stuff that production brings.
okay, well, what's next for you? Other than obviously this is wrapping up, but do you have any other projects that either, well, us, I guess in the States that we could see or anything?
I have I created a show called Hudson and Rex that is like still running here. I sometimes write episodes for that still. It's a show about a cop with a dog for a partner. And I know it is airing on a station in the US. I just can't remember exactly which station it is, but it's going into season 7 now, and that's been a very successful show too. And it is very Hallmark-esque. It might be a little darker, but it's an 8 o'clock show, and it's a lot of the same kind of vibe as a general Hallmark series. So if you find yourself able to track that down, I think you'd probably enjoy it.
Well, Hallmark could give you a call because they did have a detective and dog one that came that could use a little spruce to the writing
All
behind
right,
it.
all
So
right.
there we go. Well, Ken, it was absolutely fascinating talking to you. Great, learning a little bit more behind the scenes of creating the whole story as well as literally, how the production works and some of the things that take place. So I greatly appreciate your time. And like I say, you said if season two, I am saying when season two.
Well, I hope you're right. I hope you're right. I would certainly love to get to do that. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, have a great day. Thanks, Ken.
Thanks so much, Eric. Take care.
Bye.